1943. Nazi Germany is losing the war. On a tiny Swedish farm, a 17-year-old Nazi sympathizer who can't spell his own last name starts a company. He names it IKEA. 80 years later, 1 in 10 Europeans was conceived in his bed, and he never paid a cent of tax. This isn't a furniture story. It's how Ingvar Kamprad, dyslexic, broke, and obsessed with saving 5 cents, tricked you into doing his job for free, building a maze you can't escape, and hiding $50 billion inside a fake charity that sells nothing. Let's go back to the beginning, because this whole empire starts with a kid who literally cannot read. Älmhult, Sweden, 1926. It's freezing. It's poor. It's the kind of place where nothing happens, ever. A baby is born on a bankrupt farm called Älmträd. His father is an angry, failed farmer who is also, by the way, a raging Nazi. His mother is exhausted, and the baby Ingvar Kamprad is broken from day one. He has severe dyslexia. He can't spell, he can't read properly, he fails school, his teachers think he's slow. The other kids beat him up for being the weird kid who mixes up letters, so he develops a coping mechanism. If he can't read words, he'll memorize numbers, prices, margins. If you tell him a price once, he never forgets it. He becomes obsessed with one question: how much does this cost and how can I make it cost less? At 5 years old, he starts selling matches. He rides his bicycle to the city, buys a box of matches for 10 ore, then goes door to door selling them one by one for 15. At 10 years old, this kid is running a full capitalist empire off his bicycle. Christmas ornaments, fish, seeds, ballpoint pens. Anything he can buy cheap and sell for a little more. He's not a genius designer, he's not an artist, he's a cheap bastard with a photographic memory for money. And here's the part IKEA doesn't put on the catalog cover. Why does a dyslexic kid who can't spell name his company IKEA? Because he can't remember product codes. So he invents his own stupidly simple system. I for Ingvar, K for Kamprad, E for Älmträd, his family farm, A for Gunnarid, his village. He names the most valuable furniture company on earth after his own typos because it was the only way his brain could remember it. Every product name you see, Billy, Klippen Malm, that's not Swedish minimalism. That's a dyslexic kid's memory trick so he doesn't get confused. And it gets darker, much darker. It's 1943, Ingvar is 17, he officially registers IKEA. At first it sells nothing, pens, wallets, picture frames, cheap crap from his bike. But that same year, something else happens. A letter is found, an actual physical letter in the Swedish archives. Ingvar Kamprad is recruited into the Swedish Nazi youth movement, the New Swedish Movement, led by Per Engdahl, a straight-up fascist who dreamed of a new Nazi Sweden. And Ingvar doesn't just join, he donates money, he goes to meetings, he stays active. Long after the war ends, long after everyone else pretends they were never a Nazi, Ingvar keeps writing to Per Engdahl. They stay friends until 2010. That's not a teenage mistake. That's a 67-year friendship with a fascist. Now think about the brand IKEA sells you. Wholesome, Swedish, family, blonde kids eating meatballs in a perfect living room. The founder was literally handing out Nazi pamphlets while designing that family. And IKEA would spend the next 70 years trying to bury this. When the letters leaked in the 90s, Ingvar called it youthful confusion and said he was drunk. He was not drunk. He was 17 and very, very sober. But here's the weird link no one talks about. Why did this kid love both fascism and flatpack? Because both love simple systems. Fascism says the world is complex. Here's one simple, clean, ordered system. Dyslexia says words are complex. Here's one simple, clean, memorable name. IKEA is the same. Life is messy and expensive. Here's one simple, clean, cheap bookshelf called Billy that anyone can understand. He didn't grow out of extremism. He just turned it into furniture. And just when you think IKEA is going to die as a tiny pen-selling company, the universe hands him 3 accidents. And this is where you come in. It's the 1950s. IKEA is getting crushed. The big furniture cartel in Sweden hates Ingvar because he's too cheap. They boycott him. They tell suppliers, you sell to Kamprad, we will never buy from you again. He can't get good wood. He can't get good factories, so he does something insane to survive. First accident. To cut costs, he fires his entire sales floor. No salespeople. You walk into the warehouse, you write down what you want, you go get it yourself. In any other store, you'd be pissed. In IKEA, they rebrand it as freedom. Oh, you get to serve yourself. You just did his job for free. Second accident, 1956. An employee named Gillis Lundgren is trying to fit a table into his tiny Volvo to deliver it. It won't fit, so he says, screw it, and rips the legs off. He puts the legs back on at the customer's house. Ingvar sees this and has a stroke of cheap genius. What if we ship every piece of furniture like that? No assembled furniture, just boards, in flat boxes. Suddenly, shipping costs drop by 80%. Warehouses can hold 10 times more. Customers can fit it in their car. And who has to build it? You do. Again, you are now the factory worker, the delivery driver, and the assembly team, and you're paying for the privilege. Third accident. He opens his first big warehouse outside Stockholm. It's in the middle of nowhere. Nobody wants to drive that far for a cheap table. So people start leaving at lunch. Sales drop. So Ingvar thinks, how do I keep these suckers here? He installs a restaurant, cheap meatballs. So cheap he loses money on every plate. But now you stay. You eat, you smell food, you feel at home, you buy more. Customers do the work, pay for it, and thank him for it. It's not innovation, it's punishment rebranded as freedom. You drove 2 hours to a warehouse next to a highway. You got lost following arrows on the floor. You carried a 50-kilo box called Pax that doesn't fit in your cart. You fought with your girlfriend for 3 hours trying to build a dresser with an Allen key that costs him 1 cent. And you loved it. You posted it on Instagram. We built our IKEA home. You are the employee. You just don't get paid. And that is just the warm-up. Because once he gets you inside, he never lets you leave. Let's deconstruct the store, because the IKEA store is not a store. It's a psychological weapon. It's a casino designed by Swedish sadists who studied your brain. First, there are no windows, no clocks. You lose all sense of time, just like Vegas. Second, there is only one path, one way. You enter through showroom, and you have to walk the entire labyrinth to get out. Those little shortcut arrows, they're fake. They dump you back into the marketplace. The store is designed so you have to walk past 6,000 products to get to the one you wanted. Third, the bulla bulla trick. Bulla means mess in Swedish. Those big bins full of cheap crap in the middle of the aisle, stuffed animals, tea lights, spatulas for 99 cents. That's bulla bulla. It's there to trigger your lizard brain. Oh, it's cheap, it's a deal, I have to grab it. You didn't come for 40 tea lights. You leave with 40 tea lights. And the final boss, the marketplace trap. Right before the checkout, after you've been walking for 3 hours and your willpower is dead, they put the lowest cost, highest margin items in the world. Candles, plants, picture frames, batteries. A candle costs them 10 cents to make. They sell it to you for $5. That's a 500% markup. You are so tired you just throw it in. The average IKEA visit is 3 hours. The average customer spends 40% more than they planned, every single time. And the meatballs? They are a loss leader dosed with nostalgia. That smell of gravy and cheap beef makes you feel like you're at your mom's house. It lowers your cortisol. It makes you forget you're in a concrete warehouse doing manual labor for a billionaire. So if he's making all this money, 50 billion, 60 billion, where is it? Because it's not in Sweden. Sweden would tax him to death. And that's when Ingvar pulls the greatest magic trick in corporate history. It's the 1970s. Ingvar realizes he has a problem. He's too rich. Sweden has insane wealth taxes. If he keeps IKEA in Sweden, the government will take half. So he does 3 things. 1. He leaves Sweden. He moves to Switzerland. He says it's for tax reasons, which is the most honest thing he's ever said. He lives there for 40 years. 2. He starts acting poor. This is legendary. He drives a 20-year-old Volvo 240. He flies economy. He stays in cheap hotels. He tells his executives to write on both sides of the paper. He haggles over the price of a bottle of water. He wants the world to think, oh, that nice, frugal Swedish grandpa. Meanwhile, he's secretly the richest man in Europe. 3. He makes IKEA disappear. In 1982, he transfers ownership of IKEA to a foundation in the Netherlands called Inge Foundation. And on paper, Inge is a charity. Its official, legal, stated purpose is to promote and support innovation in the field of architectural and interior design. Read that again. The biggest furniture company on earth is legally owned by a charity that gives away interior design tips. It's a charity that sells nothing. But IKEA, the store, has to pay massive franchise fees to the charity to use the name IKEA. So all the profit flows from your local store in Texas, in London, in Tokyo, straight to a Dutch charity, which is tax-free. He didn't evade tax, he made tax not exist. The charity technically has to give away its profits. But it doesn't. In 1 year, it made $5 billion in profit and donated like $2 million. That's zero. Oro 4%. It's like you earning $100,000 and donating $40 and calling yourself a philanthropist. And where did the rest go? Leaked documents show the foundation is controlled by the Kamprad family through a maze of Liechtenstein trusts and Dutch holding companies. At one point, the family was secretly paid $2 billion in dividends from this charity. So he pretended to be poor, moved to a tax haven, and hid $50 billion inside a fake charity that legally has to help people design better living rooms. But what happens when the lie gets too big to hide? What happens when the cheap bastard dies? 2018. Ingvar Kamprad dies at 91, in his sleep, in Sweden. He finally comes home and he leaves behind chaos, because here's the punchline, he doesn't own IKEA. Legally, he owns nothing, so he can't leave a will for IKEA. His 3 sons, Peter, Jonas, and Matthias, grew up being told they would inherit an empire. They spent their whole lives working in the company, fighting each other to be Dad's favorite. And then Dad dies and their lawyers tell them, "You inherit nothing." The company belongs to a foundation board in the Netherlands, not family. A board of lawyers and accountants in Amsterdam controls everything. The sons sue the board. The board sues the sons. Private emails leak. Trust documents from Liechtenstein show the sons were getting secret payments all along. But they want more. The man who sold the world the idea of the perfect Swedish family dinner table built a family that only communicates through lawsuits over a company none of them own. The empire survives its founder. But the founder's family doesn't survive the empire. It's perfect. Dark, but perfect. So let's bring it back to you today. 1 billion people walk through those blue doors every year. That's 1 in 8 humans on Earth. 1 in 10 Europeans statistically was conceived in a malm bed. You have at least 3 IKEA items in your house right now. I guarantee it. And you still build your own bookshelf and feel smart for it. You still feel like you hacked the system because you got a Billy for $79. That's the final trick. Ingvar proved the ultimate business lesson of the last 100 years. If you make the customer feel like the expert, they'll pay you to work for you. He didn't sell you a table. He sold you the feeling that you're smarter than the guy who pays someone to build his table. The Allen key in your hand? That tiny, stupid L-shaped piece of metal that stripped after 2 uses? It costs him 1 cent to make. It costs you 3 hours of your marriage. In 2024, IKEA is worth $65 billion. The foundation that owns it is still a charity and by law must give away its profits. It donates 0.03% of them. The rest, it uses to buy more malls, more shopping centers, more forests. IKEA now owns more forests than the King of Sweden. It owns entire wind farms. It owns the malls its competitors rent. Ingvar died as the richest man you were told was poor. Ingvar didn't sell you furniture. He sold you the feeling that you beat the system because you saved $20 and built it yourself. Meanwhile, the dyslexic farm kid who couldn't spell built a maze with no exit, a charity that gives nothing, and a company you build for him. And you're going back next weekend for the meatballs.